Well, good morning. This is Monday, the 7th day of June. It's the birthday of my father. He's been gone now some 11 years. Yesterday, my brother Scott and I made a trip on short notice down to London to see Mother Bev in a senior's home, and the delight was that some of the lockdown procedures have been ameliorated. It was possible for us to take Mom out for a drive and a treat and to have a nice visit after so long being separated, the sons from their mom and vice versa. We were all delighted with the day. My brother Scott did some airplane antics to get down and then to return freeway free to his home city of Toronto. I will put under this video a post that I did about the visit, and there's a little bit about family history appended by way of a link. The Blairs, us, many generations. Going right now to a little granddaughter about to turn 6 months of age on the 21st of June. Wow. Anyway, this morning it was time to do some laundry. First time for me at the laundry room in the new apartment building. Everything went without hitch. But he gave me about an hour and a half down there with a chair with wheels on it, quite happily ensconced, I guess, to read. And what I chose to read was a reread of an old book, perhaps the oldest book that I own. It's a book about Rudyard Kipling and reflections on the man as penned by author Will M. Clemens. Now, interestingly, that is the son of Samuel Clemens, and we know him in the world of great literature as Mark Twain. Rudyard Kipling and Twain were contemporaries at the end of the 19th century and going on into the 20th. And you know, there was so much good writing going on around the break of the 20th century. Stuff that captured the heart, the issues of the heart, friendships, relationships, controversies, environments, exotic lands, exotic animals, tales of the sea and big fish and big ships, all of that. And you know, for me, it's always been a great matter to get close to places reminding of great literature. With my wife, I've been to Stratford in England and walked the Festival Theatre area for the famous Shakespearean plays. I've walked the beautiful, colorful gardens of Anne Hathaway's cottage in the same community. I've stood at Westminster Abbey upon the very grave marker of Charles Dickens. I jumped. I've wandered the mountains of Vermont, the Green Mountains, which were a relaxing haunt for poet Robert Frost. I've spent time on the marshy, open-air lands of Prince Edward County, Ontario, where the upbringing of Canadian poet Al Purdy occurred. My wife and I have visited Prince Edward Island and gone through the farm, acknowledging the contributions of author Lucy Maud Montgomery, famous for the Anne of Green Gables stories. And the farm is just like the stories. It was a beautiful day, right by the sea, beautiful. We met people who were Anne of Green Gables fans from the world around, including two twin sisters from Australia, tall, red-headed women who just couldn't wait to go to the place where apparently there were birthed all these wonderful stories of the young girl turning into school mistress and enterprising wife and mother. I've stood at the graveside of Indiana poet James Whitcomb Riley. I've tasted and relished the open air and dark waters and pine trees of the Northland as suggested in the poetry of our Canadian fellow Robert Service. I've toured the fishing community of Massachusetts, where the story of Moby Dick was birthed, and where author Herman Melville would take summer vacation and soak in the nautical tales. You could even go into the church where he worshipped, and where a pew had a brass nameplate to his name and family. Wow. So, literature, reading, great literature. I'm afraid these days it's suffering. People are just too impatient. They're too multitasking. They couldn't consider a period of time, book in hand, traveling to a distant story, adventure, conflict, romance, injustice, battle, exploration, a biography, an apology on something of value, inspirational exposition from the scriptures and from mighty philosophies, I suppose. We don't have that. It's not going on. Consequently, powers of communication suffer, and that means so much. It affects relationships, jobs, self-advancement, conflict resolution, fantasy, adventure, release, sensitivity and use of words. All these things we're losing because we're losing powers of conversation. It's all this encrypted internet stuff, LOL, etc. Well, I want to read one thing, and I will stop at that point. Here's a tribute in this little book, A Ken of Kipling, and it was written by, or it was spoken out in an interview by James Whitcomb Riley. I referred to him. The poet of the people said of Kipling. A lot of fellows who know of Kipling's early history think that he just did it, that he just happened. But that fellow was hustling around newspaper offices from the time he was 13 years old. Born and brought up among a strange people with queer customs, he was for years gathering material for his work. Well, that was in India. He has the greatest curiosity of any man I ever knew. Everything interests him. In fact, he's a regular literary blotting pad, soaking up everything on the face of the earth. Who, before Kipling, ever gave us animal talk? Aesop's fables were kindergarten compared with this. Think of a man only 32 years old who has given to the world 11 volumes of prose and verse. He has only just started. Another thing, read him from beginning to end. Study him, because as familiar with his work as you will be, every new bit from him displays some trait, some line of thought that is new. That man is great. Mr. Kipling's phrasing is picturesque in the extreme. Meeting a friend once, after a long separation, he said, "Good heaven, how much water has flowed under the bridges since we two met." Well, at the tail end of this little book, there's a listing of publications, books by Kipling right up to 1899. And I see such titles as Soldiers 3, Wee Willie Winkie and Other Stories, Departmental Ditties and Other Verses, Life's Handicap, Stories of Mine Own People, Barrack Room Ballads and Other Verses, The Jungle Book, The Second Jungle Book, Slaves of the Lamp, Captains Courageous. Wow. He went everywhere, identified with everything, and expressed in every keen use of the English language and expressions from other cultures the way we live, the way we feel. His religion, focusing in that one poem, Recessional, I guess, is all about doing things. It's very little about quoting creeds and confessing. It's about love and service and helping and doing, as Christ would have done, as Christ exemplified in those 4 wonderful Gospels. There again, we're reading, aren't we? And people just aren't doing it right now. Well, I've said enough. Wonderful time doing my laundry, reading about Rudyard Kipling. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye for now.